Morning, YouTubers. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about something a little bit different, and that's being inspired or having an inspiration or just getting out and doing something. I read a post online on a Facebook group that kind of inspired me to make this video, and I think you'll understand why. Obviously, this brick wall is far from inspiring, so let's see what I'm talking about. So you can see in this post, it's a 16-year-old kid that's pretty ambitious. He wants to get into boat building and building his own boat. Now, if you read it, he has pretty limited welding experience, he even says a few weeks. You have to take a post like this with a grain of salt because, let's be honest, does that kid at 16 years old have the skills necessary to build a boat? I would say no. Does he really understand what it takes to build a boat? I would definitely say no. But that's not the point of this video. I'm not crapping on his rainbow per se. The point of this is that you can have goals and be ambitious, and that's awesome. But how do you ever achieve something that you want to, some goal like building a boat? Well, you have to know what you're getting into, and you have to have the skills necessary to do that. That's really the point of this. So let's start looking at that. So here are some pictures of the boats that he's talking about. Now, let's be honest, the time it took probably to engineer these, the simplest being on the left, and the skills necessary to weld or manufacture them and the tools that are needed are really out of the reach of a 16-year-old. That doesn't mean that it's impossible, but let's be honest here, pretty unreasonable. But that's all right, because just because the odds aren't stacked in your favor doesn't mean you can't do the impossible. I'm going to let a video play in the background while I talk, just so it's a little less boring than just staring at a picture, I guess. So anyways, if you have a goal in your mind, it doesn't have to be a boat like this kid. It could be something maybe more or less ambitious. Doesn't matter. Whatever it is, the key to actually getting it is to get educated in what it takes to get there. And that's probably one of the hardest parts. I would say it's the second hardest part of actually achieving a goal. So if you don't know what it takes to get there or what you have to do to get there, how are you ever going to get there? Like a goal or achieving something, generally speaking, isn't by accident. Like all the best musicians, and I haven't met that many, but the ones I have that are like phenomenally good, they didn't just wake up one day and accidentally get good at a piano or the guitar. They spent years and years of practice. And you at home, be it in your little shop or your garage or your parents' basement, whatever you got, you don't necessarily know what it takes to get to your goals. So it's important to do research. Like if you want to build a boat, there's boats out there on books on how to build boats. If you want to build a hot rod, there's, YouTube, you're watching this video on YouTube. There's so much information out there. You need to spend some time gathering as much information as you possibly can to be better educated so that you have a higher probability of achieving your goal or what you want to do, simply because you know more about it. Like you don't want to get to your achievement by accident. Like the odds of that is so slim. Like it just doesn't, life doesn't work like that. If you want to own a house, you don't just wake up one day and you own a house. Like there's a far more that goes into it than just that. So once you become educated with books, the internet, YouTube, listening to me drone on, then the most important part you need to combine with that is what I call effort. Now, I'll tell you, the effort is the hardest part of any goal, any dream. That kid that wanted to build this boat, okay, he's in for a lot of effort, a lot of work, because not only does he need to research everything about boat building, but he needs to build skills like how to use tools like saws and tape measures and possibly plasma cutters and welders and riveters and all this stuff. And it's, let's be honest, it's years and years worth of effort it takes to accrue all of those skills and tools. So it's not an overnight thing to get to your end goal. Now, in the case of this kid who wants to build a boat, One of the smartest things might actually be just to save up his money, buy a cheaper boat, and maybe even take it apart, or at least do a lot of like reverse engineering on that. I mean, you don't have to take it completely apart, but like figure out how it works, why it's designed the way it is. Like when you start with something, a project that somebody else already started on, it's far easier to like engineer something better than it is currently than it is to start from scratch and then make all the mistakes that everyone previous to you did. Like that wastes a lot of time and money and tools, and you're always better off trying to, I don't want to say fix something that already exists, but I think you understand what I'm saying. But boats, I don't know anything about boat building, but I do know something about welding, and I know aluminum welding isn't the easiest thing to learn. And I would imagine boats have a whole bunch of aluminum welds on it. So from a skill perspective, that kid definitely needs to learn how to weld aluminum, and preferably watertight aluminum welds, because obviously it's not a boat if it sinks right. So his skill development needs to focus heavily on the welding aspect, probably riveting, epoxying maybe, just working with aluminum, and of course being able to read simple measurement tools like tape measures and stuff. So if he can't do all of that, he's simply going to struggle. And even with a $10,000 budget, considering current prices of aluminum and steel and everything, it's entirely possible that he couldn't even make a functional boat for that by the time all of the mistakes he made, were accounted for, and cost overruns. So again, I'm not trying to crap on his rainbow and say it's impossible. It's just improbable. Now, I'm not really qualified as an expert in anything, but one thing I will say I'm qualified in is achieving the improbable. Nothing is really impossible, but many things are improbable. So I am at least qualified to talk about that with you guys. So getting back to goals and achieving them, if you do have a goal, it's important to actually pursue it. And I know when you're younger and overly ambitious, the whole world, you want to achieve everything, and you get into kind of a funk where you get in your 20s and your 30s, 40s maybe, things aren't going well, and you're simply not where you thought you would be, and you see everyone around you in a better place or with more skills, and you just don't know what to do. Well, the key is, like I said before, get educated. Spend a couple hours a week or a day even, if you have the time, reading books, research stuff on YouTube. Find friends that have skills. Like I know that, I'm kind of an anomaly where I have a lot of skills in a lot of different things, and most of my friends are, I don't want to say one-dimensional, but they're very skilled in specific things, not in a broad range. So it's important to have a decent group of friends so that you can learn from them. And if you don't have a whole lot of friends, then it wouldn't hurt to maybe look at your local community college. It's often that community colleges offer free classes or very discounted classes that you can take just to learn new skills. Local high schools even do that. I know the high school where I live at does almost borderline free welding classes, and even probably basket weaving, to be honest with you. So going out and doing stuff like that and learning hands-on skills will put you in contact with people that are motivated and have skills and have stuff to share with you. So getting a good group of people together will help you tremendously on anything that you want to achieve. I mean, let's face it, building a boat is a small task, but it's not really a small task. What you want to achieve might be, say, buying a lighthouse or something and fully restoring it. That's obviously a much more massive undertaking than a boat in a lot of respects. And anyone that you can have that can provide help or assistance or knowledge will go a long way. I mean, you can't really write off the help that other people can give you, especially the knowledge end of things, because there's nothing more inefficient than doing things the wrong way for hours, days, or weeks, and then having to go back and redo it because it's wrong. Like, that's the worst case scenario, and that's really caused by ignorance. And if you're educated, you won't be ignorant. You're not gonna be free from mistakes. I mean, that's just like the name of my channel is Making Mistakes with Greg, which, well, with me, the point of my channel is to kind of inspire you guys out there to pick up tools, make mistakes, but in an educated form. I don't want to see you guys wasting months and months of time on foolish mistakes just because you're ignorant. I want you guys educated. So anyways, back to what I was talking about. In order to achieve your goals, the more educated you are, the better. The more skills you have, the better. I mean, I primarily work with metal and engines and old buildings, and I restore stuff. I mean, but there's a lot of things I don't know about. Like, if your goal is to be an amazing dancer, well, I definitely can't help you with that. If it's to be an amazing singer, I'm not musically inclined, so can't help you much there. But there's other people out there that can. But you have to be willing to jump on the bandwagon, per se, or jump on the boat and put in the effort to get there. I've met so many people in my life that are so ambitious and they have all these dreams and they fail on the first step. That first step where, like, go to college for a single class or sign up for like your high school to learn a simple class, one-night class. Like, they don't even take that first step. And I've heard from so many people over the years, I can't even count how many people that say stuff like, oh, well, I'm just not that good at school, or I'm not good at tests, or it's like, you're telling yourself that. I mean, don't get me wrong, we're not all at the same skill level, we're not all at the same intelligence level, but after a certain point, that's almost irrelevant. Now, I'll never build a nuclear reactor that functions, or at least I doubt it. I mean, maybe if I live long enough I could, I'll be honest, I probably am not smart enough to be able to do that, okay? That doesn't mean that what you want to do is beyond your ability, okay? And maybe I could. I don't know. I've never tried. And that's the thing. Like, so many people, I would say it's a daily occurrence. I hear someone just say, oh, well, I'm not smart enough, or I can't do that. It's like, well, yeah, yes, you can. Why don't you save to make that opinion? Wait until you've tried something and you've put maybe 80, 100, 200 hours into that. Put a bunch of time into it, do your research, put in the effort, and after 80 to 100 hours of actually trying, do you come back and say, okay, I'm not good at it, or it's not for me? Like, try that first and see how that does for you. Because I'm willing to bet you guys out there might actually be surprised at what you can do if you put in the effort. And I understand that failure sucks. Like, I'll tell you what, I hate failing. I'm pretty much a perfectionist. Like, everything I want to do, I want to be the best that anyone has ever done it. I know that sounds ridiculous, and it's such a high standard that it pretty much dooms me to ultimately never being happy with what I do. In some respects, it's great because I can output quality that's unbelievable, but in other respects, it's very nerve-wracking on me, okay? So that's not necessarily the best way to look at things, but being a little bit more like, oh, you know what, I'm going to fail at this for a while, and just accepting that failure and learning from it, that's how you get good. Like, every musician that's out there, I guarantee you, spent probably a few years making some pretty terrible music, barely being able to keep rhythm maybe, and if you compared where they wound up to where they started, massive difference. And had they given up at the early part, they would have never got to where they were. And that's really the point I'm trying to make is that you can't write off your abilities before you even try. Because, yeah, you'll never achieve anything if you give up before you even start. Another important thing, besides just raw effort and putting in the time to learn skills, is you have to be reasonable with yourself. Now, you heard me say that I'm pretty much a perfectionist and I'm very hard on myself if I'm not basically anything but perfect. You don't want to be that way to the extreme either, okay? That has a severe detriment after a certain point, because perfection is really a matter of an opinion. The work that you do might be perfect to someone else, and the work you do might be completely rubbish to another person. So if you keep putting this unbelievably high standard on your work or yourself, your achievements are going to drop off the face of the earth, simply because you're going to get so, not distraught, but what's the term? Disenfranchised, disappointed maybe. You're just going to become demotivated because of what you perceive as failures, and you're going to lose sight over what you've actually achieved. Like, you want to look at everything you do not just as failures, but look at the achievements as well. And if you put in the effort and are knowledgeable, trust me, you will achieve far more than you will ever fail at. And even if you're not that good at something, who cares? Try something else. Like, Rome wasn't built overnight. I hate that saying. I mean, it's probably, well, as old as Rome maybe, who knows? I don't know where it came from, but you get the idea. So to get back on topic, achieving your goals or your dreams, you want to get educated, not be ignorant, meet people, find people that are like-minded. If you can't, put in more effort to try and find them. Read as much as you can about what your goal or what you're into. Watch YouTube videos, subscribe to my channel. I had to say it. But just put in that magical effort and good things will come your way. And I can't stress enough, I guess, that educated effort is what matters. Ignorant effort will never achieve anything. It's kind of like if your goal to be rich is to play the lottery, that's ignorant effort. Because just on face value, the statistics tell you have such a low probability that that's not a viable method. Not to say, people win the lottery all the time. That's absolutely true. But from a reasonable perspective, that's not going to happen. So you want to look at things like, how can I reasonably do this? Like, if your whole goal in life is to be a billionaire, well, I can tell you that if you really want to do that, you're not going to get there from playing the lottery. You're going to get that from starting a company or developing something that changes the world. And that kind of brings me to my final point of what I'm trying to get at. So when I read that kid's post about wanting to build a boat, the reason it really inspired me was because I realized at one point in history, well, nobody had boats, and somebody was inspired enough to try to make one and fail a bunch and ultimately was successful. And that kid, who knows, like, maybe he's destined to build state-of-the-art boats or change the way boats function. Like, you just don't know. And that kind of ambition is what changes the world. I have a saying that I came up with a while ago, and that's, if inspiration can change the world, then inspiring the world can save it. And I really believe in that. People can change the world simply by putting in effort and taking what they know and their skills and doing things. And you out there, no matter who you are, you have something of value to both yourself, your family, your friends, and the world as a whole. And you just need to get out there, put some effort into it, some fine-tuning, some elbow grease, and get out there and build some stuff, or get involved in something that you like and share what you have with the world. And that's really my point, is that Yeah, that kid with his boat, he probably, let's be honest, he probably won't ever make a boat, but that doesn't mean he couldn't, and it doesn't mean that he shouldn't try. And that's my whole point, is that you should definitely try, put in the effort. Well, you probably were wondering the whole time I was sitting there talking, what the hell it was I was doing in the background. And I'll show you. So that kid wanted to build an aluminum boat, right? Well, you got to be able to weld aluminum in order to do that. So what I have here is the 3 common joint styles. I didn't do a lap weld, but it's the same difference. But I did a fillet, a butt weld, outside corner joint. If you can do a butt weld, you can do a lap weld. But I did this just to show you that if you're capable of doing this, and these are nowhere near perfect. I mean, I definitely wasn't focusing on being perfect, just wanted to lay a couple welds down that were watertight. If you can do this, you can weld a boat. It's going to take probably, I would say, I don't know, a couple hundred hours of practice and probably about $300 of material to really get at least halfway decent. And a welder's probably going to cost you about $600 to $1,000 that's capable of doing it. But that is what it takes to be able to weld aluminum. And for that kid, his dream of having a boat, he's a couple hundred to a thousand hours of practice away and a few $1,000 of materials in a welder from having the skills to do most of it. I mean, I don't know anything as far as like how to bolt engines to a boat or how to design a hull to where it works properly. No idea on that, but books and other YouTube channels certainly can fill you in on that. But this is like 80% of his dream. I just did it in front of you guys, and it's not that hard. It just takes the time and effort. So anyways, with that said, I want to say thanks for sticking around for the whole video. I know this is a little bit different than I normally do, and I ranted on and on and on like I'm doing now, probably a little bit too much. But thanks for sticking around. Maybe you got inspired. Maybe you're going to go out and tackle something. I want to see that out of you guys. Like, believe in yourself. Thanks.